Hello, and welcome to the Bozeman Beat, the City of Bozeman's podcast where we have real conversations about issues our city cares about. I'm Mayor Joey Morrison, the host of this podcast, and I'm chatting with people across the community to shed light on things the city is involved in and things we may not be but are still important to our residents. Today, we're talking with an organization that has deep influence over Bozeman for well over 100 years, Montana State University. The city of Bozeman was incorporated in 1883, and just 10 years later, Montana State University was established and began its first term of instruction. MSU brings vibrancy to Bozeman, whether it's through the energy we all feel when students come to town, or the innovative research and knowledge that professors bring, benefiting all of us. It has frequently been the thing drawing people to Bozeman, and people often want to stay because of this wonderful community we all live in. Here with me today is someone drawn to Bozeman by Montana State University, just like myself, Montana State University President Brock Tessman. Thanks for being here with us today.
Joey, thanks for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're excited. Before we get started, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what your role as president feels like today?
Well, today, as president, it's just about the best feeling one can have. We're a week away from our spring graduation ceremony and commencement, and may be hard to believe for some of the folks who've seen MSU grow over the years and who are used to certain numbers of students being around. But we've got over 17,000 students on campus right now, and what that means is that next week we're going to graduate about 3,000 students. And so a ton of excitement, a lot of celebration. We're very busy, but making sure to step back and as president, take it all in. This is my first spring commencement. And so I'll answer it really directly, which is today we got great spring weather and we have this fantastic stretch on our campus. We hope the community can join in the celebration as well.
Yeah, graduation seems to be either beloved by the community or loathed because of the sudden injection of just, it feels like the city doubles in population because of everybody that's coming in to celebrate their kids, their family, and their accomplishments.
Yeah. Well, so there are mixed feelings. And so for me individually, it's actually bittersweet. And I can't say it so much this year because I'm still relatively new here. I've gotten to know a lot of our students, but I'm just a year in. I'm telling you, in 2, 3, 4 years, it becomes this really bittersweet moment because you're so excited to see the students graduate, their family and friends join in. It's also sad to say goodbye to them, at least for most of them. And for the community, I totally get it. It's kind of a microcosm of this dynamic between campus and the community. I think Bozeman and the Gallatin Valley love the energy and the activity and all sorts of things that come along with having this really major organization, this university, right in the heart of the community. It also, especially around game days or commencement, a little bit more traffic, tough to get into some restaurants. It feels a little bit more crowded, and so it's a mixed bag, but it is mostly celebration. I hope for everyone.
Yeah, I think absolutely it's a net positive excitement in the community for sure. But it's a testament to how big of a deal it is that it reverberates out so wide. It's not a weekend you can miss. In this community. I
agree. It's just like a great trail in the community. I mean, you got this, we have these beautiful trail systems. I like to get on the trails a good bit. And it happens to be the case when you've got a great trail, especially if it's a beautiful day. Yeah, when you go out there, there are going to be a few other people out there with you. And so a little bit of a mixed bag, but mostly you're really happy to be out in this beautiful place. And it's, I think, the same for campus. It's a great university attracting more and more students every year. So sometimes it feels a little crowded, but I think we're all happy to have the university flourishing.
Yeah, no doubt. Really the first part that I want to start with is just what made you fall in love with this place? What convinced you? I could think of a lot of things. It worked for me. I got sucked into staying here. What made you decide, hey, this is the place that I want to stay and commit, a lot of time, a lot of sweat to this community, to this university?
Yeah. Well, this is a story about me and also my family. So my wife, Kristen, and then 2 daughters. Frances just turned 11. What a perfect 11-year-old birthday. Okay, the 2 things she wanted. This is just so perfect for an 11-year-old. I'm sorry, Frances, by the way. This gets out. So she wanted lip gloss in a remote control car. And I just thought, if there's anything that captures 11 years old better than like lip gloss in a remote control car, I don't know what it is. But so this is a story about our family. We're not new to Montana. And I don't know. I say that a lot, but maybe not all your listeners know that. We were in Montana for about 10 years. We've been out of the state for the last few years, back in my home state. I was born and raised in Michigan, and so we're back in Michigan. But we've always wanted to be in Montana. And in life, you may appreciate this, there are times where, professionally or otherwise, kind of at a bit of a crossroads, you got to make a decision. And for us, we knew that I wanted to lead a big university, and we were in Helena at the time. I was not working on a campus, and I loved my job. I had great colleagues, a lot of impact there, but I wasn't on a campus. I wasn't with the students. I wasn't with faculty, and certainly just not feeling the energy on campus. And so looked around and thought, well, where can I pursue this lifelong professional dream of being a university president? And in Montana, kind of two spots to do that, at least at the kind of major university level. And one is in Missoula. And actually, our family had spent a little bit of time in Missoula, but we left that place, and it's all good with Missoula. However, we knew we were never going back to Missoula. So that left one other place. And at that point in time, Montana State University had a fantastic, transformational, kind of legendary president, Waded Cruzado, no doubt, all of those things. And of course, I had no idea what her timing was. So we left the state knowing that if there were ever an opportunity to come back, it would be at MSU. And so when President Cruzado announced her retirement, for us, it was not the timeline we had expected, but it was a no-brainer. And we had spent a lot of time in Bozeman along the way. We never lived here, but gosh, when we lived in Missoula or Helena, we're down here all the time for, Museum of the Rockies, just kind of the vibrancy downtown, the natural scenery I mentioned earlier. I like to get out on the trails. And also through my work, had learned so much about this university, which, before I started, I considered MSU to be this way, and certainly I do today. I think it is the country's preeminent land grant university, and I believe deeply in that part of our mission, and I am so respectful of how much success at MSU has allowed us to achieve much of that mission. And so the professional opportunity to come back is just unbelievable. This is a dream come true. No joke, there are pinch me moments. It's embarrassing to admit it, but I run early in the mornings. Now, sun's coming up, especially now, this time of year, it's great. See it on the Spanish Peaks off in the distance, and just I'll stop and say, let me soak this in, because it seems too good to be true.
So has it felt, I guess, like somewhat of a homecoming to be coming back to this state? And what's been something that you've, I have to ask as a Montanan, what's something you missed when you were back in Michigan?
Yeah. And a lot of positive thoughts about Michigan, by the way. It's important for me to say that. But when we moved back to Marquette, that's where we were at Northern Michigan University, one of the first things that I miss is, I think, the light and the air. And there's a very special quality, not just in Bozeman, but I think it is special in the Gallatin Valley, to the light here, and then just the quality of the air. And I'm not talking about, strictly speaking, air quality ratings, but for me, it was a real an emotional shift. And like I said, I get out every single morning. That's my time to connect to myself and connect with the place I am. I am immensely affected by the natural setting that I exist in. And so immediately upon leaving Montana before, I missed that. And so coming back, I was here last summer, and my family was still back in Michigan. So I was here on my own and kind of feeling that emotional piece missing. But it was offset by the fact that I'd get out early and have an opportunity to really feel this reconnection with the place that feels like home. And my mom's side of the family has deep Montana roots. I wasn't born in Montana. I don't know how it works, but in our family, we talk a lot about this feeling of reconnection that I have in Montana. And that's not my world. I was a lowly political scientist, but if I were mentally capable of sort of understanding whether it's spiritual, whether it's something in the DNA, that connection feels very real to me when I step outside, take a deep breath of our Montana air, And also noticed in particular, kind of in the morning and the evening, the quality of the light here. It's moving to me, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. It's really an important part of being here.
Yeah, I appreciate something that you touched on there that I think I have felt, and I think I've heard a lot of Montanans describe that. Of course, every state is very special. There's a lot of beauty all around this country, but this feeling of roots in this state that are generational or something sort of intangible. When I was looking at going to medical school and I was leaving and I was touring and visiting other universities around the country, I would consistently feel like I don't know if I can actually leave, as much as I'm trying to pursue opportunity, thinking about my career and the future that I might have. Maybe I would come back, and that's what I would tell myself was, even it might just be temporary. But at the end of the day, I still decided this is my state, and there's challenges in this state that I need to fight for, and things that I want to help to fix. And it kept me stuck here, and I'm grateful for it. But there is something that I think a lot of Montanans describe that keeps them rooted here.
I can really relate to that. I can. And it's a beautiful thing about being a Montanan. I think we all have some sense of it, and it's at different levels of intensity and depth for everyone here. I think a lot of our students feel that on campus too. And we forget a little bit about that, especially as we welcome more and more non-resident students. We always start and finish with Montana students. That's where our focus is. We're intent on bringing in as many Montana students as we can. As Bozeman and the Gallatin Valley grow, Big Sky grows, Montana grows, and MSU grows, we are attracting more non-resident students. I try to remind people those students have found something in this place. They are selecting this university, this state for good reasons. And we can't disregard that connection that they feel. And oftentimes they become lifelong Montanans and, they meet a partner. They may choose to have kids. They may start a company here or be a teacher or a nurse here. And so that connection with Montana can start at any point in our history as a state, and it can start at any point for an individual, including a lot of students who choose MSU.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that leads nicely into a question that I think I get from constituents often, perhaps you do, about the relationship between the university and the community that it sits in. It sits within the city of Bozeman, sits within Gallatin County. And I'm curious how you are now, you're coming up on a year, how you're thinking about the relationship between the university and the city, the relationship between the university and the school district, these sort of town and gown relationships that my constituents ask about, that I know is ripe with opportunity, but also challenge between universities that make college towns into college towns.
Yeah. I think the relationship's really positive. It's important in life. You have to have a sense of context and relativity. And I've had an opportunity to work on a few different campuses. I mean, not a ton, but a few different campuses. And I'd like to say kind of unequivocally, the town-gown relationship is very positive here. It can be very complicated. It can be tense. And there are areas of complication and tension, but I think overall it feels really good. I say that as kind of a new arrival making an initial assessment. A couple of observations. One is that we're in the same boat. I sense, just in my understanding of our community, whether it's the city or the valley more broadly, grappling with growth it's a great challenge to have in most ways. I think if you talk to areas or you talk to campuses that aren't growing, they will trade the challenges they face for the challenges we face.
Absolutely.
But it is not uncomplicated, and it raises all sorts of questions about sustainability, about equity, about quality over quantity. And the thing that I notice is that I feel like the city and the valley are grappling with that. And that's one of the primary challenges that our campus grapples with as well. Neither of us are growing at breakneck speed. If you actually look at the numbers, we're not growing recklessly or unintentionally, but I think we do need to both tend to sort of the architecture and infrastructure that makes that growth feel sustainable to everyone, in particular folks who've been here for a while and are used to a certain way of being. And so I think that helps serve as a connection between the university and the community. Last thing I'll say on it, I think in Montana, the importance of showing up cannot be overemphasized. And it's precisely because it's hard to show up in Montana, whether it's weather, geographic distance, the fact that a lot of us have so much going on and we're pulled in different directions. And so one opportunity we have, I think, is to make sure we're showing up for each other. And I've tried to be attentive to that. I also just really enjoy meeting people and learning. And I hope our entire campus continues to emphasize the fact that we're part of the community, and so we need to show up. I don't know all the details. I haven't been able to see it in action, but I was so happy and grateful to see that our students are going to be more actively involved, I think, with the city commission, right? In terms of being present and, listening and learning about some of the big topics that the community is grappling with. It's one good example of how I think we have good connectivity.
Yeah, it's funny to now be really grappling with how do we make concrete the relationship between the university and the city of Bozeman that has been, a pipeline for talent for the city writ large, and even on our commission. I mean, our deputy mayor Douglas Fisher has taught at MSU. Commissioner Emma Bodie and myself are MSU graduates. So it's clear that there's been a tacit, tight relationship between knowledge creation, research, an academic pipeline for really sharp people that decide to say, whoa, this place is really special and I want to stay here. And now as we're starting to grapple with many of the same issues together, of seeing how we can be additive with one another, how we can work in lockstep on some of these really big challenges of growth, and how do we maintain a sense of place? How do we maintain a university identity? How do we maintain a Bozeman identity when change is coming? Yeah. And that feels like the question of the moment for a lot of municipal leaders in the Rocky Mountain West, and I'm sure it's no different for what the university is thinking about.
That resonates, and I think Montana State University has done a good job thus far of growing. And it's not just student numbers. I mean, the physical infrastructure on campus has grown. The profile of Bobcat athletics has grown. Our research enterprise has grown. But through all that growth, I still feel like the campus does a good job of maintaining a sort of human first, sort of, very intimate environment. So it still feels like you can walk across campus, look people in the eye, have an exchange. Students can still stop in and, spend quality time with their professor, with their advisor. And I think for the community in the campus, making sure that as we both grow, that we don't lose that personal level connection. And I to bring us to this moment right now, I was so happy to receive the invitation to come and sit down and talk with you on this podcast. I mean, it's things like this that retain the human to human connection that's been so instrumental in making Montana and all the communities here what it is today. And it's the thing that's probably under threat most as we see all of this investment and economic development and just growing numbers in the state.
I think what you've described there with that human to human connection is, at the end of the day, I think something that actually gets really highlighted in weekends like what we have coming up, when folks come from all around the country. And we're walking on a trail, we're walking our dogs on Pete's Hill, and folks are overjoyed with how personal Montanans are with one another, that everybody's waving, everybody smiles at each other, even if they've never met each other before. And I think when there's a feeling of angst and tension, I like to at least remind everybody that energy is still here. We still have a strong culture of having each other's back, of showing up and being polite, of manners and smiling to a neighbor. And I think that human piece is still very present here. And so I think where I'm going to ask next is maybe something that's challenging some of that in our community, and I'm sure for academic institutions, which is about artificial intelligence. I know as I've been going around to various community leaders and business leaders and even other organizations around the state, it is the number one question that folks are grappling with, especially in academia, of what does an education mean now in an era of artificial intelligence, and how do we make sure that the value of an education stays the way that it is?
Yeah. Well, that's one, if and when you invite me back, we could do a whole episode on AI. And it's moving so fast that if you invite me back in a year, we'll probably have an entirely different conversation than we are today. It's just 3 years ago, right, that Chat GPT sort of, made its debut. And think about the evolution of artificial intelligence in the last few years. I I wish I had a better answer or a clearer answer for you in terms of what an AI relevant education looks like. Here's what I'll say about Montana State's approach to artificial intelligence. One is no one has answers
Mm-hmm.
in this arena, including the CEOs of name major AI company, and I'll include them. They don't have answers either. They have, I think there's visions. There is certainly a lot of thought going in. I don't think that local, state, federal government have all the answers. We certainly don't have all the answers. One thing I like about being a public university is that we kind of bring together all different elements of society. I mean, our partnerships with private industry, our connections to all levels of government, of course, the perspectives of our faculty, experts, our staff, and students. I think what that allows us to be in this moment of great uncertainty is an institution that does not have answers, but can set a tone and can develop capacity so that we're ready for this AI world as it's coming right at us. What I would tell our listeners right now and the state of Montana is that we may feel like we can insulate ourselves from some of what's arriving on our shores, so to speak. It is my belief that we cannot. It is my belief that this is not something that will be more relevant in other parts of the country, the Bay Area or the East Coast, and less relevant here. It is such a permeating transformation that whether you are a mayor or a university president, you better look at your organization and figure out how to develop readiness. My daughters both play basketball. I think about it as being in a good 3-point stance. So 3-point stance means you're in a position where you can either dribble, pass, or shoot from that position. And that's I think, our job as a university in the next 6 to 8 months is to get into that 3-point stance so that we're most capable of addressing whatever it is that's coming down the road. It's about absolutely what students will leave MSU knowing about AI, whether it's specific skills, whether it's about ethical boundaries that shouldn't be crossed. It's also about preparing them for jobs that are changing really rapidly and preparing them for what I think will be some job loss. I don't think that overall we're going to see a reduction of jobs available, but when I say job loss, I mean that some jobs that exist today are going to go away. They will be replaced by other jobs. And so we have to be ready for this moment of major change. And, I don't think that anyone has a roadmap there in front of us that we can navigate effectively. But I do think we're going to take it, year by year. We are engaging heavily our faculty experts. We are leaning heavily into industry partnerships. Montana State University will be a university known across the country as a university that is a leader on AI, not a shill for AI, nor a resistor to all things AI, but a leader in terms of a practical, reasonable, and aggressive approach to preparing students for an AI world.
Yeah, it seems to be universities, of course, are going to be in the crossroads of a lot of these questions of how do you have it serve universities' missions, both of educating its students, of not compromising the educational experience. That's, of course, going to be a challenge with ethics and ethics of students, ethics of faculty, ethics of the production that AI can bring, but also the pipeline outward of how do you teach and ensure university students know how to use these tools, not dissimilar to Montana State University getting a cryo-electron microscope, which is another tool. Even just last week, I had the honor of serving as a judge for the graduate school's 3-minute thesis. And cool. So many of them had a core AI component of using AI to detect rot in potato plants and rock falls from mountainsides and things like that are incredible potential life-saving, life-altering, economy-shifting measures. And trying to prepare a world for that when the goalpost keeps shifting, when the potential keeps widening and narrowing, feels impossible at times and intractable. And I'm sure universities that are sitting at the place that's meant to be the tool gathering place for young people is got to be a huge challenge of how do you grapple with that? I mean, we're trying to figure out what are even our policies? How are we relating to these items within the city? And we're not even tasked with necessarily how do we tell the world how to use this thing?
So well said. I think people talk about moments of great transformation, and maybe the most comparable moment, in my opinion, when this all plays out, will be the Industrial Revolution. And I think if we get this right as a society, but let's just focus here. If Montana State University gets this right, I think on the other side of the transformation, oh my gosh, the possibilities. I think it can reduce workload and stress, not just on our own employees, but around work in general for human beings. I think it's going to allow us to crack the code on some of these really complex puzzles we've been trying to solve for decades or centuries in really core areas like human health, productivity and food supply, whatever it is. So we're going to get there if we handle this correctly. And I believe we will. But there is no doubt the period between today and when we get to the other side of the transformation is going to be a little bit more unstable than what we're used to. And that's in terms of the jobs that are going to be available for graduates, economic performance in general, and then certainly the curriculum and the way that we engage students while they're on our campus. And so we're gonna ride that out, and again develop this flexible posture so that we're ready for what every not just year, but what every month brings to us. That's a little bit different than the last month. That's education being agile. That's what education needs to provide our students. And at this moment, I think our primary objective is to be able to communicate that to students and families and the state so that students opt in to Montana State University as the best place to be ready for this AI world. They don't opt out of MSU or college in general because they feel like it's no longer relevant in an AI world.
Yeah, and I think to what you had just said about that we're moving into a time, the sort of the liminal space of pre-AI and fully an AI world, and a lot of angst with that, a lot of feeling that you had mentioned of, some destabilizing of economies, of jobs that people are not sure is going to catch them at the end. And of course, we're not getting into a lot of the other muddy parts of this, of intellectual property and copyright and data centers and water consumption, energy consumption. But those are nonetheless always wrapped up in these conversations. As we're coming to a close, I think we've probably got time to really just get into one last topic, which I think is maybe a helpful plug for what you guys are going through right now. Can you tell us a little bit about what MSU is thinking about in updating its strategic plan, and how can listeners potentially participate?
Oh, well, that's great. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm about 10 months into this role now, and there is just no doubt. Anyone who's been paying attention to MSU will know this, and I know this as well as the new president here. We've had a really exceptional period of success, and I won't go through all of the areas, but really across the board. In any meaningful metric that one would look at in assessing a university, it's been such a strong era. My goal culturally and in terms of the energy on campus is to make sure that we don't consider ourselves to be at some kind of peak moment. We have not sort of reached our high point as a university, and thus our job is not to hang on to everything we've achieved. We need to recognize it, we need to celebrate it, and we need to learn from it. But we're writing a new strategic plan with the intent to maintain and actually accelerate the momentum that we have. And so I do think about it not as a peak moment, but as a base camp moment. We've earned the right to regather ourselves and think about our next ascent as a university. Because we don't want to disrupt our momentum, this plan that's coming together is not going to be built on 15-year visions or, 6 months of considering what our mission statement is. We've got the pieces in place. Instead, we're building a plan around 3 or 4 very actionable, very land grant oriented, very discernible projects. There'll be boundaries around those projects. They won't be everything to everyone. But they are going to be ambitious. They're going to be about our next steps as a university. Some of them could feel like they are really on-campus initiatives. And I don't know, we've heard a lot about student advising and student success on campus. That feels kind of campus-centric. But I think a huge part of almost every one of these projects, these 3 or 4 projects, is going to be about the way that we connect with our community and the state. And this spring, into May and June, July, and through the end of the summer, we're shifting our listening focus off of campus and into the community and around the state. So there'll be many opportunities in the Gallatin Valley and Bozeman, and we're taking our show on the road, and we're going to get around the state through our extension offices and really open up our doors so that we're hearing from the communities that we serve. And I appreciate your spotlighting this. I make a direct ask to everyone who's listening. Please, if you have an opportunity, engage the strategic plan. It has not been written. This thing is not fully baked, half baked, quarter baked. It has to be written by all of us. And what you choose to engage with as a community member will affect the outcome of the plan. And there are a lot of opportunities. You can go to montana.edu/strategic plan. You'll see some posters and flyers around campus, and there'll be a lot of messaging this summer that will provide your listeners an opportunity to either attend a listening session, fill out a survey, however they want to engage.
Great. Of course, it's a big undertaking, and I wanted to make sure, you had the opportunity. Dean Adams came and presented to the commission, so it's on our mind, and wanted to make sure that the listeners as well understand this is a big undertaking, and trying to ensure that folks have an opportunity to get their fingerprints on this. As we've gone through a multi-year community engagement effort where our community members were trying to get their fingerprints on community plans and city plans that we were working on, wanted to make sure that listeners know this is another opportunity to have an impact on the community and show some leadership and take responsibility of the future of this university that is smack dab in the middle of this town in more ways than one in the future of that institution. As we're coming to a close, I really just want to thank you for taking the time to sit down with us today. If it ever comes up as a future opportunity, we'd love to have you on again, but maybe it'll be about how we're chest deep in the AI world, and we're having to think about completely new questions than we're having to think about today.
Well, thanks, Joey. I mean, maybe a year from now, the Mayor Morrison agent and the President Tessman agent can sit down and have a conversation. AI may have advanced that. No, it'll always be person to person. Thank you so much for the invitation. I would love to come back whenever you'll have me. And just know that my family and I could not be happier to be part of the community that you are leading. And I thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. That means a lot. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in, and we will see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Bozeman Beat. If you enjoy listening to this show, please help us out by sharing this episode with a friend or rating and reviewing our show on whichever podcast app you use. If you have feedback, questions, or a suggestion for a future topic you'd like to hear us discuss, please email us at podcast@bozemanmt.gov. That's podcast@bozemanmt, as in Montana.gov. Hope to see you in the next episode.